for what he did not do on January 6, 2021 at the US Capitol. So prepare, because this is very serious. If we can expose that the deep, deep, deep state is doing this to us, why are they doing this to us, Mick and Barbara? Why would the deep state want to poison us and control us and blow us up and make us live terrorized?
Could I say what I was going to say before?
Yes.
First?
And I want to answer Corinne's very tantalizing question.
Yes.
I did want to add, I should have said about my background, which I think it really matters for both credibility and to know who I am. To answer your question, how did you, why do you care about all this? Why are you so dedicated? And by the way, I'm a total volunteer. Nobody pays me a cent to do any of this. And it's more than a full-time job, believe me. It took 100 hours of my time to produce all the details that were required, including a big picture, getting the speakers and all of that for our Lawyers Committee event that just happened last Sunday. That's on our website. You can watch all 4 hours at lcfor911.org. Everyone needs to do that. But the other part of my background you should know about for credibility's sake is that for 16 years, I was the senior military affairs journalist at the Naval Postgraduate School. That's as in U.S. Navy. And it's not just a U.S. Navy institution, although it is administratively. The Naval Postgraduate School is here in Monterey Peninsula of California, where I live. Most people think it's back east or at Annapolis or something. No, it's here in Monterey, California. It's a gorgeous place. Everybody wants to come here from D.C. to get out of the swamp, right? And they all come here. All the VIPs come here. For 16 years, I was the senior military affairs journalist there. And the Department of Defense itself bills the Naval Postgraduate School as DoD's premier science, technology, national security affairs, and Homeland Security Affairs graduate research university of the Department of Defense, of the Pentagon. And for 11 of those years, I was a very high-ranking U.S. Navy official employee and had to compete for that position against all journalists in the entire U.S. Navy, and I got it. Okay. So if you want to get in touch with me for anything that has been said here or what you would like to do, I would prefer not a phone call, so I'm not going to give out that. But my email address is BS, perfect for a journalist, right? BS? BSHONEGG@gmail. So it's BSHONEGG@gmail.com. And be sure, I get about 500 a day. I can't even read the subject lines. I will not find it unless I can pop this subject line into the search field in Gmail. So please make the subject line read. What is the name of this show, Corinne?
America Happens.
All right. Okay. Question from your American Happens show. Something like
America
that.
Happens.
America.
If America doesn't happen, we will no longer have the U.S. Constitution. So remember that. America Happens.
America Happens. Fine. So BSHONEGG@gmail.com and subject line your presentation at America Happens. And the last thing I'll say, and then I will have to go pretty soon. The last thing I'd like to say is, that slogan, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a nation. It will take our entire nation. It takes everyone doing everything they can for us to succeed in eliminating this truly evil criminal organization, which is not the entire U.S. federal government, but it is certainly the part of the U.S. government that is covert, it is black, it is evil, and it must be removed. Thank you.
That is so huge. Wait, tell us before you go, tell us about your event that's happening in Dallas, Texas this month.
I will do that on another show if you'd like, but not. Okay. I won't mix the two.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. Mick, can you stay with us?
I'll stay on. I'm going to stay on until you.
Okay, you can stay on. Okay.
Until you close the show.
And I need to go pretty soon too. I have an obligation with a client meeting. But to answer your question, which is a difficult one to answer, why would some group or some individual want something so badly that they're willing to poison citizens of their own country, or including children. And you could ask that question about, killing innocent citizens with explosives on 9/11. You could ask it about COVID. You could ask it about a number of controversies. And it's not an easy question to answer because I mean, folks who are human, folks who care about their families, their neighbors, their communities, their nation, and the Constitution would not do those things, would not commit those sort of crimes. So you're talking about somebody else with a different worldview who's willing to engage in those sort of crimes. What really caused me to become a lawyer was a question like that, because in my own community in Bloomington, Indiana, we discovered a large chemical poisoning problem, a Superfund problem at the Westinghouse. We have 4 Superfund sites there. And my inquiry, they proposed a really dangerous solution, which wasn't a solution, it was going to exacerbate the problem. And in my investigation, before I became a lawyer, working as a volunteer with Indiana Public Interest Research Group, I found EPA was lying to me, and they were willing to do things to allow the ongoing poisoning of children. I found that in my investigation of the childhood cancer
What
cluster.
year? What year was that? Because
That-
I was born in Bloomington, Indiana. What year was that?
oh my gosh. So that was 1984, 1985, 1986 when I discovered that.
Okay.
I went to law school in 1987, was actually recruited to be a member of the founding class of the District of Columbia's new law school, a public interest law school. I was very fortunate that the dean recruited me and helped me go to law school when I didn't have a lot of excess funds as a teacher to pay for that. So, so I've been struggling with this question you asked for a long time since that
Yeah.
time. Who is it? What kind of mentality would justify in their own mind poisoning kids, blowing up your own citizens? And it comes down to people who put money and power over human life. And there are folks who do. And that includes some big corporations, including Big Pharma. It includes some folks from certain political perspectives who actually put their own values above even the Constitution of the United States and above even a nation's interests. And we're getting some corporations that are so big that they're multinational, and loyalty to a country doesn't mean anything to them, and loyalty to a constitution doesn't mean anything to them. And that's where some of our problems are coming from. And I think when you see this sorts of risk we're talking about, an anthrax attack, a virus that may be very hard to control and can actually destroy an entire population, and the next attack we get may be more like that. I mean, Barbara said this coronavirus may have been released accidentally before it was fully weaponized. That may be true. The problem is the next attack may be fully weaponized, or the next release may be fully weaponized, and we may have a very hard time dealing with it, which is what my client is trying to combat. So I want you to listen to me carefully because I don't want to be misconstrued, and Barbara will be shocked that I bring up this topic, but I'm not a believer in aliens. However,
I'm not either.
However, the whole subject of UFOs we've learned is becoming more credible in the U.S. government. But the only reason I mention that is that Ronald Reagan thing. I think it was at the UN where he asked the question, what if we all different countries faced a common threat from outside this world? And I don't know that he was a believer in aliens either. I think he was trying to make a point that we need to see what we have in common, and we need to learn to work together because we have more in common than we have differences. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And my point at the moment is this: there are folks in this world who are causing some of these problems, like the 9/11 attacks, and who are bioengineering bioweapons, who are prepared to use whatever weapons they have at their disposal to achieve their goals. We've seen that attempted already. And my only point in the moment in bringing up aliens is, if we've got folks like that within the human race who are prepared to make these egregious crimes against humanity, it doesn't matter that we don't have aliens trying to attack us, because we can destroy ourselves. And if an alien civilization was trying to take over this planet, they probably couldn't do it by sheer force, because they would only be able to bring a small force to this planet. It's similar to the folks we're talking about. The wrongdoers are outnumbered by us. We, the victims, grossly outnumber the wrongdoers. The only way they can gain and maintain control is by dividing and conquering us, pitting us against each other. And we need to learn to work together and see our commonality and not our differences. Otherwise, it will be as if we were being attacked by aliens, and we'll be allowing these alien mentality humans to destroy our Constitution, to destroy our democracy, and maybe destroy the future for our children. And so that's the best answer I can give you, that it's an alien mentality among humans that causes these crimes against humanity. And we need to join together to combat those wrongdoers who are in the minority, and we can't let them divide and conquer us.
That
And
is
if I
so
could add,
powerful, Mick.
if I could add to that, yeah, I agree with Mick 100%. You don't need to go off planet to realize that these powerful black covert forces, they've been around a very long time. We're talking about what President John F. Kennedy warned us about. He called it the military-industrial complex. It's a lot other dashes on the complex than that. Media complex, academic complex, etc. Yes, Eisenhower warned us about. I mean, but my point here is that what was my point? Mick just said something that made
Sorry,
a
I was
little
just
bubble.
reminding you of Eisenhower's. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
You said we
that's
don't
right.
need to go to off planet to.
Oh
do
yes,
something.
thank you very much. It's very clear to see that this black operation, which is not just the United States, believe me, it is transnational. That this black operation of power-hungry individuals in government and in the corporate America, in the banks, that they have a plan and they are carrying it out to create a global pandemic that will be far more contagious and far more lethal than the one we experienced, which was just a dry run. I think of it as a huge public preparedness exercise, is what this past pandemic and the responses of the governments worldwide was. They're preparing to create, for human beings to create, what Ronald Reagan thought, well, we might need the aliens to do it. No, we don't need the aliens to do it. It's being done right here on the planet. And that's why it's so important to expose every aspect of this. And I ask you again to please go to the Lawyers Committee website, lcfor911.org, read our petitions in the menus across the top of the homepage, scroll down a little bit, watch our anniversary event that is online in the video on our homepage, and that's at lcfor911.org. That was just this past Sunday. And is it all right to ask for financial help, Corinne?
Of course. Uncensored. Okay. Go for it.
Okay. So you heard Mick say that we operate on a shoestring, believe it or not. I mean, we are volunteers doing all this, what our government should have done itself, but of course it isn't, because the government was complicit. And at least in terms of the anthrax attack, have admitted they were complicit. They've admitted it was an inside Army facility job with the anthrax attacks. So please help us. Any amount you can donate will be appreciated and is greatly needed, especially now because we are getting there. We're never going to give up. And you go to our website, lcfor911.org, and there's a big donate button that'll take you to a PayPal page. And thank you for anything you can do. Mick?
Thank you, Barbara. You're incredible. I want to have you on next week whenever you have time. Thank you. Mick, okay. What do you have to say here? I want to introduce Tommy Tatum. Tommy Tatum, I met in Washington, D.C. several years ago. He is actually a January 6er who has never been arrested because he witnessed the murder of a woman named Roseanne Boyland, who was an American patriot. She was murdered on January 6th. She was beaten with a stick by a black female police officer named Lila Morris. And Tommy Tatum had to witness that. So this is Mick, and this is Barbara, and this is Tommy Tatum. I know you have to go, Barbara, so whatever you need to do. But I really wanted Tommy to join this discussion because he is suffering. You know, he has been, God chose him to witness what really happened on January 6th, and this relates to everything we're talking about today, is government
So it's
corruption.
not only Ashley Babbitt who died.
Right. It's not
Yeah,
only Ashley Babbitt, Roseanne Boyland.
Yeah, I actually live with Mickey Whithoff, Ashley's mother, in D.C., and we do the nightly vigil. So God has put us all together, and I caught the last part of the conversation. And yeah, this is an evil world we live in. I'm Christian, so I've learned to look at this world as like who runs this world. It's really a 6,000-year-old satanic Canaanite cult, and they do all this evil stuff. I don't know why it's so hard for Christians to believe. Like, where do you think the evil of the Bible went? You know, it's still here. So I know that's kind of a grandiose explanation, but just to add my 2 cents to your previous conversation.
So Tommy,
Well, regardless
Tommy
of who is behind it, it's evil, and it must be eradicated.
Yes, ma'am.
So Tommy witnessed the murder of Roseanne Boyland. She was the first person that was murdered, correct, Tommy? And then they murdered Ashley Babbitt. And then the police. Okay.
Yeah, so I believe the first person to die was Kevin Greason. And
Okay.
there is a little bit of a, well, Epoch Times story came out a few weeks ago, and he actually had his heart attack before the first exploding munitions. We all thought for a long time that the flashbang, let's call it a flashbang, gave him a heart attack. But it has been proven that he had his heart attack before that, but they still lied about him. But then, Benjamin Phillips died of a second to die. I believe Ashley was shot around 2:30 maybe, and then Roseanne, I've looked at so much footage. She literally was beat to death with a stick at 4:27:59 on the body camera footage.
And so this is making men get charged for 20 plus years. And so this is what I cover in Washington, D.C., the very serious political prisoner situation that's happening. So, Mick, I want to introduce you to Tommy Tatum, and Barbara, I want you to meet Tommy Tatum, because everything that started because of 9/11 is evolving, and it's causing some very serious problems in America where they don't care if they murder American patriots who stand up for the U.S. Constitution. So we're coming full circle.
I need to tell you something. I need to tell you, and this is a fact. It's a fact. I don't deal in anything but facts like Mick. It is a fact that after 9/11 happened, that Michael Chertoff, who's the head of the criminal division that oversees the FBI, in the lead up to 9/11, on 9/11, after 9/11, and was the mastermind, along with Mueller, FBI director, and others at DOJ, of the cover-up of 9/11, the elimination, destruction of evidence, cover-up of evidence, etc. All right. It is a fact that when the Department of Homeland Security was being set up, okay, I believe it was Ashcroft who was the first director, and then it was, I believe it was Chertoff. Chertoff became this. He really became the first real director, knowledgeable director of the Department of Homeland Security. And who did he bring in to advise him? Marcus Wolf. Marcus Wolf was the head of all black operations for the communist government of East Germany.
Huh. You know, Michael Chertoff also was selling metal detectors in airports at the same time too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
he made millions of dollars.
He helped write the Patriot Act. And last year when they had the disinformation board, the Nancy Mary Poppins, whatever her name was, I think whenever she publicly resigned from the position, he kind of took over that disinformation board. There's news stories about it anyway.
I'm sorry, took over what? Couldn't hear that.
Remember the Biden's disinformation board they were trying to do with the Nancy Mary Poppins?
Chertoff.
Yeah. Go ahead, though.
Well, we also learned just the other day on the 9/11 War Room, which anybody in the world is welcome to join at 9/11 War Room. Is it .com, Nick? Do you remember? Anyway, if you just Google 9/11 War Room, it's once a week. and it's great. It's where everybody from
Not a lawyers committee thing. I think Jean
no,
Laratton
no,
does.
no. It's has nothing to do with the lawyers committee. Although we know all these people, of course, in the movement. Everybody in the movement, pretty much, we're like a family. We're not that many of us, but in any case, at the 9/11 War Room, either this past time or the time before, there was an article that the host of the War Room put up. He puts up everything that he sees related to 9/11 from the week before, and all the links are there. And if you go to 911warroom.com or .org, Google it, 9/11 War Room, you'll find it, and go there. They archived all of those videos and all of those links to those articles. Within the last 2 weeks, there was an article that Chertoff is the advisor to the Supreme Court of the United States on all terrorism-related matters and cases. Well,
Really?
who brought a case to the United States Supreme Court? Nick Harrison? You're looking at him.
Well, a couple of them. I didn't actually know that, Barb. You're going to send that to me.
Yeah,
So, Corinne, I apologize. I have to run to a client meeting.
I do.
And Tommy, it's nice to meet you. If folks want to call me about January 6th, you're welcome to do that. I have to tell you, I haven't investigated it myself. No client has asked me to do that.
Well, Corinne, if you can have his contact info to me later. I just had a presentation, a 75-slide presentation, courtroom quality evidence that shows how the cops started the right on J6. I just presented Thomas Massey last Wednesday.
So Tommy, stay on. So Tommy, stay on and let them go, and then we'll stay on and talk about it because Joe Olson is still on. So stay on, Tommy.
We'll make sure. We'll make sure the lawyer gets a copy.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Barbara.
that.
Yeah, it's
So-
Is there
share
anything you want to say in closing?
Go ahead, Barb.
Oh, say in closing. Well, I was just going to say if when Mick does receive that presentation of 75 slides, I know that he will share it with the Lawyers Committee Board, and we look forward to seriously looking at it. Whatever our facts, we accept facts, but we will investigate for ourselves whether they're facts. Okay.
Perfect.
So in closing, I just want to thank you, Corinne.
Thank
I want to
you.
thank you for doing what you do. You're getting the flack because you're over the target. And you're getting a lot more flack than Mick and I, so you must be over a pretty important target. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again.
I would love to, and I want to attend your event in Dallas.
Yeah, I will let you know how.
Okay, we'll talk tomorrow. Thank you. Is there anything you want to say, Mick, in closing?
No, just thank you for your time and attention and your good questions. I will say, as Barb said, first for the Lawyers Committee, they are pretty focused on 9/11 issues. So, I'm not sure they'll pick up a new one, but we all look at evidence given to us on any issue and at least consider acting on it in our private capacities, and me as a public interest lawyer. But I am evidence driven, so I can't tell you what position I would take until I see the evidence, but I'm open to it. So feel free to contact me.
There is so much going on with January 6th. It's a big Pandora's box. There's so many lawsuits that are going to evolve because of January 6th. The number one is that there is 40,000 plus hours of footage that no one's been able to review because people are overwhelmed and no one has the time. And these men are getting persecuted and prosecuted without even being able to have access to this footage. And that's where Tommy comes in. So thank you, Mick. Please come back. So Tommy, are you in?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Mick. Tommy, are you in Washington D.C. right now?
No, I'm in visiting my mother right this minute. I'm planning on going back on the 20th, somewhere between the 20th and the 25th, and actually reviewing some of the January 6th footage with one of the first per se defendants who has access to it. His name is Jay Sixanon on Twitter. And when I said to mention his name, he's in the process right now, as we speak, of releasing 210 clips from January 6th, hardly anybody's ever seen before. So you might want to follow that Twitter handle and look at it's all kind of new footage. I think there's like 20 hours of new footage to have to go through.
That's amazing. And so how many hours of footage have you actually personally witnessed besides witnessing the murder of Roseanne Boylan on January 6, 2021? How many hours of footage have you actually sat through?
It's hard for me to calculate that, but when I testified in Brian Mock, United States of America versus Brian Mock's Day 6 trial a 3 months ago, I think I said I watched around somewhere to the equivalent of 10 to 12 hours a day for a year.
I mean, that's a lot, Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
what's the bottom line here? What happened when you were in DC this last week?
So I went to, so there's a couple of investigative teams, and I would say these are top best investigators in the world, and these are actual J6 defendants or people who are at J6. So we have AJ Fisher of Investigate J6. That's a really good Rumble channel for you guys to go look at. A lot of this presentation material is on that Rumble channel. And then Dave Sumrall from Stop Hate, who you know, Corinne, is a very central figure in the January 6th movement. And then Trentus Evans with Condemn USA. So a lot of his work was incorporated into it. And then Daniel Goodman, who's a J6er who's already served his, I think it was like a 30 or 60 days sentence. So those guys all put it together. And I took it to Congressman Thomas Massey's staff, and I showed it to them, went through the whole thing, and it went very well. There's a lot of things they didn't know. And our presentation has some answers to questions that they were looking for as well.
Have you thought about bringing this to Speaker of the House McCarthy, since he's under fire today by Congressman Matt Gaetz? Everybody is saying that Speaker of the House McCarthy has the power to stop the J6ers from getting persecuted and prosecuted at the rate that it's happening. What do you think about McCarthy?
I think that I saw him wearing a Bohemian Grove emblem on a polo shirt when he was in Hawaii not too long ago. He goes to Bohemian Grove, so I don't trust him. He hasn't done anything in the last 8 months. He's been protecting the people who planned and perpetrated January 6th.
I mean, that's what's
Speaker
happening.
of the House. I went with Mickey Whithoff when she met Ashley's mom, when she met with Kevin McCarthy. And in that meeting, this was a year and a half after Ashley was murdered on live TV in front of the entire world. And apparently the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, had not watched the video yet, after he made the statement that the police were doing their jobs that day. So I didn't notice anybody getting shot dead outside of Kevin McCarthy's office yesterday when a bunch of lunatics stormed his fucking office, is all I'm saying.
Yes, yesterday a whole bunch of I don't know, left-wingers went into...
They were HIV activists, and they were there to complain about Kevin McCarthy not doing some kind of funding or continuing some program that the Democrats canceled. So there you go.
And so, you know, what's the truth now about who is actually helping in the House of Representatives and in Senate? Are there any senators right now actively helping the January 6ers?
No, so we've started going to the House of Representatives and going to the committee hearings, like the Twitter files, all that stuff in January when they opened Congress back up. And we've had multiple meetings with dozens of Congress people, actually. And none of them are really doing anything.
And that's the truth. And that's why, you know, I took a little break from Washington, D.C. this last month because, you know, I've dedicated my life to building America Happens and the America Happens network, because they're not going to ban or censor me. And all the other news stations, you know me, Tommy, for years, I've been banned and censored just like you have. But at this America Happens network, the founders will not ban or censor us. And so we're based in Las Vegas. And what I've really learned is that, you know, being this far away from Washington, D.C., because, you know, I've been there every single day since February 2021, you know, things don't really happen in Washington, D.C. at the pace and rate that should happen. And so all eyes are on the Freedom Caucus. All eyes are on Matt Gaetz now, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Thomas Massey and the people right now, like Jim Jordan, the people who promised that they would stand up for us. And, you know, Kevin McCarthy promised that he would stand up for us. And today, Matt Gaetz is exposing that Kevin McCarthy is not doing what he promised to do. So it's time to hold these people accountable as we enter into the 2024 election cycle. Do you have any hope for any of these elected officials? Eli Crane seems like a good guy. I've met him. I've looked in his eyes. What do you think, Tommy?
I like the Freedom Caucus members, and when I have met with certain members of them, I don't want to say their names, but and a few of them I had the opportunity to tell the story about me witnessing Roseanne's murder. Some of them are very pragmatic with us, and I appreciate their honesty, even though they're saying things I don't necessarily want to hear, which is like things like, well, there's not a lot of appetite on Capitol Hill to investigate J6. That's what we were told in January, and we have made a lot of differences. I like the Freedom Caucus people because they at least will say the truth on TV. And part of me feels like they have been working on a process. The only process I think they really can have at this moment in time, which is they only have one half of one branch of government, which is the House. They can do oversight and everything, but the only other power they have is the appropriations process, in which is Larry Loudermilk is over. So I've heard like Matt Gaetz hinting around, and a couple other of them hinting around about defunding the prosecutors, like the prosecutor's salary, taking that from them. Or Gozar in the field hearing about January 6th said that we could hire 10,000 Patriot sedition hunters, basically, or whatever, and to go through the footage ourselves and then and view it and release it in a responsible manner. So my point is, all of that is through the appropriations process, which is the only real power they have at this point, other than oversight and showing the American people. And you know, Corinne, like the American people are not quick to react to a lot of these things.
Well, it's overwhelming because you and I know that that no one really tells you what's actually happening, and that's why you've been a boots on the ground frontline journalist with all of this, and you and I have spent a lot of time in Washington D.C. together, and I just feel like if you and I are not the ones who are going to expose the truth about Washington D.C., there's not really much hope anymore, because after this next election cycle and after we see what's about to happen with election corruption across America, it's going to be shocking. And, I don't want any violence, but there are going to be people that are going to decide to live in pockets of communities where they have the mayor and the sheriff united, that they're not going to support a corrupt federal government anymore. And, you and I are in Washington, D.C., and we've seen over 180 government agencies that are getting nothing done, like the Government Accountability Office. Have you ever seen the Government Accountability Office that has a massive budget get anything done? No.
I've never seen the federal government take any problem and make it better. Not one.
And that's a huge issue, because how much money are they giving to the people in Maui who have suffered from the fires? $700, $2,200 a month. We don't know, because we're not getting any information. What you and I watch, Tommy, in Washington, D.C. is families destroyed, men's lives ruined, their children's lives ruined, people getting arrested and persecuted, and yes, people committing suicide because of the federal government, because of the weaponized Department of Justice, and of course because of what the FBI and potentially what the CIA is doing, because we don't even know the names of the federal government agencies that are out to attack us. Like right now, you and I both get surveilled in Washington, D.C. Who's really doing that? Is that FBI? Is that CIA? Or is it another agency?
I think the FBI probably is the one doing their surveilling. The CIA is the one who plans the ops. And I released a couple of CIA ops from January 6th on our Twitter the other day, where you have, we call them the first one, the damsel in distress. She's walking around with the onion in her hand, rubbing it in her eyes, telling everybody we need to go a revolution, stuff that Trump supporters would never say. And then we actually have another op where we believe it's a transgendered person, or at least a man dressed as a woman, banging on a window, trying to get people basically to break the window with a rock. That's all CIA. CIA does those kinds of operations and plans. The FBI is kind of like the I don't know. They're like the knee breakers for the federal government. They're henchmen, right? They're the ones that are there to cover up pedophilia on Hunter Biden's laptop for years and years, right? They're the ones that are there to throw little 14-year-old black kids in the gutter in inner city in jail for the rest of their life over the crimes that the FBI set them up. And that's been going on for decades. And the January 6th movement, and I don't think the system realized this, is exposing the criminal justice system. And you mentioned weaponization of the DOJ, but there is absolutely a weaponization of the judiciary. We have communist judges, Marxist judges, literally intentionally persecuting our January 6ers because of their race, their religion, and their political beliefs.
That is happening. The persecution and prosecution of white Christian men in the United States of America. I never thought I would say this because I was raised as a feminist, but it is happening now. The persecution, the prosecution, trying to destroy white Christian men, especially men who are dominant. Today, a member of InfoWars that I super enjoy.
Schroyer.
Owen Schroyer. He was in. He was in court today. I'm just saying his name because, he's a public figure. There's a lot of people that you and I witness that are not famous. They don't have any money and they get pushed around by the system. And I write about this a lot on different newsletters and things like that. But today, Owen Schroyer, had a really decent lawyer, Norm Pattis, and, he got 60 days in jail, which, is shocking, but also it shouldn't be happening, but it is.
What's shocking? Well, what's shocking about that is that I think they even said it. I think the judge said it, or maybe the prosecutor. For his speech, he got 60 days in jail because his speech helped lead to January 6th. Well, if you can't get any more blatant than that, America, I don't know what to tell you. I see a lot of J6ers come to D.C. and they think that we have a legal system that's fair and they'll have a fair shake. We will get no relief from any January 6th trials as long as they're held in Washington, D.C. And I don't even believe these prosecutors believe these convictions are going to hold up past this next election, because that's what all of this is really about. These aren't trials. This is not about justice. This is about their attempt to keep a belligerent occupier as commander-in-chief.
Right. So what we're watching is we see Owen Schroyer, who has a great voice with InfoWars, and one of my favorite people in the world is Alex Jones. I can talk about this later, but what I'm saying is that they're trying to silence us. So what we're witnessing is that, especially in Daniel Goodwin's case, that the judge, a very corrupt judge, and I can say corrupt because it's my personal experience for the last 2 years, a judge named Reggie Walton said that, Daniel Goodwin should have his phone, should have his computer, everything monitored while he's on probation, so that the government can decide if he's spreading misinformation. And that's where this is all heading. The government wants to be able to arrest you, Tommy, arrest me, just for talking. And that's what happened to Owen Schroyer today in court. He was just talking. He wasn't inside the Capitol. He was talking and using his voice, and he has to spend time in jail now, which is totally corrupt. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution is not being respected anymore, and that's why America is under duress at this point. We don't have freedom of speech. We don't have freedom of the press, and people need to really take this seriously, because it's going to start, on the outskirts with 9/11 and J6 and the Maui fires, but then it's going to affect you if you say anything wrong in your phone, if you say anything wrong on social media. The federal government is trying to come in and be able to persecute and prosecute you and take all your money. And that's what this boils down to, is money. What they do is they try to take all your money and destroy your life. And that's what we're watching with the persecution and prosecution of January 6ers by these judges that really don't care. Even Trevor McFadden, in the beginning, he's a judge that was appointed by President Donald Trump. He's turned on the January 6ers.
Well, there's lots of things I can say about that. When you mention the judges, I know a per se defendant who, when he asked for the federal judges, I guess it's oath of office. I forget exactly what it's called, with their oaths.
Do they have their oath of office where they take the vow to defend the U.S. Constitution? That's Judge Boasberg. That's many of them. Do they really have their oath of office? What do you think?
Well, I know a defendant who asked for them in federal court, and he was told they don't exist. And then he was admonished, and his lawyer told him that if he brought the issue up, that he would lose his license. So
that is so shocking. So we don't even know. And I want to do this with you, Tommy, next time we're in Washington, D.C. at the same time. I'd like to go and I'd like to start asking these judges. Of course, we can't do it in the courthouse because the First Amendment free press is being violated in the U.S. federal courthouse right now. We have to wear a mask. We have to sit in certain areas. We can't even have our phone on. We can't take pictures. We can't do anything. So the bottom line is that we'd have to wait outside the courthouse onto public property and ask Judge Boasberg and ask Judge Reggie Walton, did you ever take the oath of office? Did you ever take the vow to protect the U.S. Constitution? And you're saying right now, Tommy, that you believe that many of them have not, correct?
I have the case file showing where they say that they don't exist. I have the case file. I have all the court work. I mean, people send me stuff all the time. You wouldn't believe it. And kind of like what you were talking about earlier about the media's not going to do this for you. I was going to say the lawyers are not going to do this for us either. The lawyers are the ones who are making off the best on January 6th. You know this. But it's going to be us. It's going to be us, the people. You doing your show, me doing whatever it is I do, everybody else standing up, all these podcasts. It's going to be us, the people, who take this country back. And we're in the process of it. We don't see it because it's not an event that happens overnight. But people are waking up all the time. You know, when you talk to people, they're realizing things. And we win this fight. I've always known that through God and my faith, through all of this, that in the end, we're victorious. And I think our enemies, and on a spiritual level, know that as well, which is why they recoil from us so much.
January 6th was my wake-up call because so many of my acquaintances got arrested. I was almost set up to go there. Thank God I wasn't there because my eldest daughter got COVID. But what I'm saying is that, my previous guest today, 9/11 was their wake-up call. So all of these things that the federal government is doing to us is going to ignite a wake-up call for freedom fighters like you and I, Tommy. And, so there are blessings in disguise. But right now, this month of September 2023 in Washington, D.C., we're seeing the Freedom Caucus led by Congressman Matt Gaetz start a complete mission to really tell Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, that he needs to get with the program and do what he promised to do, or they will ask that he be removed. What do you think about that?
I'm ready for him to go a long time ago. I wish they would have made Byron Donald Speaker of the House when they were voting, when they were doing all those votes in January, I guess. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy is of no use to me and most Americans.
What is the most banned and censored news that you have for us today, since you always do all the most banned and censored news?
I don't. Well, it's not banned yet, although I got some sensitivity levels laid on to my tweets. So I found a video today where when Roseanne Boland has died and been drugged through the Capitol, one of the cops walks up, and we're calling him Officer Pepper Penis with another word as a hashtag, because this is the cop who takes the ambulance to go to the hospital in front of Roseanne Boland because he got pepper spray on his hands and went to take a leak and it burned his penis. So he made a lady who was dying from blunt force trauma to the head wait while he went and did that. And then this same cop, we have him talking to another cop when a cop was asking, was that person who died one of us or one of them? And he said it was one of the protesters. And this cop goes, well, fuck them then. That's your D.C. cops. When they kill us in D.C. on the steps of the United States Capitol, their response is fuck them. And that is exactly the response from this federal government to the American people when we complain about anything.
How many times have you been arrested since you've been in Washington, D.C. this last year?
Just once, non-papered. Because when I got arrested, I went there and talked to them about Roseanne Boland and the fact that all their coworkers murdered a woman beside me and nobody will do anything about it. They don't talk to me anymore. Literally, I think I reported her murder to a couple dozen police officers, including Chief Judge Boasberg, in a trial. Well, let's just say in a courtroom in which I was holding trial and telling the truth about what really happened on January 6th.
And that's really powerful because people have to understand that we have these federal employees. These are our employees. These are employees of the federal government that we pay with our taxpayer dollars. We have federal employees covering up murders by police. We have federal employees who are not taking their oath of office. We were raised always thinking that these federal employees took their oath of office, and now we're finding out that maybe they have not.
But you know what? The reason they're not taking them is because they're Marxist communists. And they are here to destroy our government, and they're doing a really good job of it. These communists took all three forms of government without firing a single bullet, and then wiped out our military. And most Americans sat on the couch and watched it happen.
Who do you think is really behind this? Because, the cue drops say, just sit back, eat the popcorn, watch the show. Well, you and I are on the front line in Washington, D.C. We could get arrested at any time for any reason. They fake charges on you, and then they arrest you, and then they say you resisted arrest, and then they get everybody around you to try to say there's conspiracy. So many things can happen. Where do you think it's going? What do you think we need to do now? What's the next step?
I have been following Jan Halper Hayes on Twitter ever since she gave that interview in Great Britain on GB News 3 weeks ago, and where she's talking about the federal corporation being bankrupt and all that. And I had heard all that stuff my whole life. I just never had anyone say it of a level of stature, I guess I'll say, in which I would believe it. But I do now. And then Donald Trump retruths her and says she knows what she's talking about. And then Derek Johnson, if you look at the the presidential emergency action documents and the executive orders that Donald Trump did in 2018, where he separates the commander-in-chief powers from the presidency of DC Corporation. It's all there. So I don't think we have to do much more. I don't think we have to worry about a 24 election. I think things are happening within the next few months that we'll all be very happy about.
I mean, that's shocking. That's what everybody says to me. I want to check something. Is Joe, are you still with us? Joel Olson, are you with us?
Yes, and I hope I can talk.
Oh my gosh, talk, Joel. I didn't know. Okay, this is Joseph Olson, and he was supposed to be on the show, but his sound wasn't working properly. So let's give the show to him. Talk. Do you want to stay on, Tommy, or do you want to go? Stay on. So this is Tommy Tatum.
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Okay, so this is Tommy Tatum, and this is Joe Olson. Go for it.
Fascinated by your work. Yeah, they definitely been killing us with J6. You've mentioned people being red-pilled by the J6 or by the Wu one. I was red-pilled in 1972 when my grandfather had 5 acres of land. Senator Lloyd Benson, Senator John Tower, and the governor of Texas, and his 5 acres on South Padre Island, where they ended up making a double S bridge on it so they wouldn't have to give any of their property up. Absolutely disgusting. And then working with real estate developers that were doing projects that were absolutely it doesn't matter. We've got funding from the savings and loans. If we go bankrupt, it'll just go back to the money. I've heard that phrase before, and it's creative bankruptcy. And the mayor was trying to push a 14-mile monorail by Disney connecting 3 commercial real estate properties. Right? Metro, where it was going to be a $1 billion project. I said, it makes no sense. I'm a civil and structural engineer. What trains do best is going a straight line, long distance at high speed. A rail system, 27.5 miles long, that would connect intercontinental airports with a 27.5 mile high-speed heavy rail, convert Main Street from the noisy, stinky bus corridor to a marble and glass covered air conditioned top hall. I was on the local news for 3 minutes of over $250,000. I met with every elected representative in this 7 U.S. congressmen, 4 city of Houston mayors over a different period, every member of city council, every member of the state senate and legislature, spoke to their committee. Turns out I met with the fired head of Metro, who ended up being a few. I asked him, why are they doing this $1 billion no bid contract? It's a violation of. He said, yeah, I know. Local contractor said, we don't have to bid against anybody. We have excess profit in this $1 billion rail project. I'll get rich on it. Went divorce court, where I met the author of George, the Mafia, the CIA, Bruton. You can watch his 2-hour interview on PBS. Absolutely stunning. He had crisis, a $600 million ripoff of the tax member of the Bush clan was heavily involved in it. So, that's pretty.
Joe, the sound is the sound. We can barely hear you. I mean, it's really important that you be in full internet capability. I know it's super hard these days because we don't even know, what locations are good, but we can barely hear you. So I want to invite you back on America Happens News on Tuesday or Thursday next week when you're really in perfect internet. Can you hear me, Joe? See, we're having very serious sound problems today, so I'm so sorry. I apologize. This is the state of our internet in the United States of America. It's completely shocking. I know I spend, $500 a month to get internet access. I don't understand why the internet is not perfect, but I just want to end this in prayer. Are you there, Tommy? Do you want to pray with me, Tommy? Are you still here? Who's here? Is Joe here or is Tommy here? Is anyone here? Testing, 1, 2, 3. So what I want to do is I want to say I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful that all y'all took the time to listen to what this episode is about, because it's very serious. Starting 9/11 in our lifetime, major government corruption and lies and zero transparency is happening. And so this is evolving into every serious news topic today. Just this last week, obviously, the White House is going to potentially introduce a new vaccine. And of course, other countries are experimenting on testing with genes. There's so much news happening, and that's why it's so important. Please join me on the next episode of America Happens News. It will be Tuesday, September 19th, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go on for about 3 hours because we do not ban or censor. So please join me. I'm so grateful, so thankful to have you today. After you sit through an episode like this, you really realize, what's the point of all of this? And you have to understand that the true news is Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So I want to take a moment to just really thank you, Jesus. Thank you for all the truth and all of the information that's real that we presented in this show today. And please take the time to donate properly to the America Happens Network, because we are doing this with our own money, with our own funding. We don't want to sell out to an investor yet who will try to control our news narrative. Our news is raw, our news is real, our news is timely, and we are in the front. We are on the front line of the news. I'm boots on the ground, heels on the ground, and it's so important. Please donate to the America Happens Network at www.americahappens.com. As I continue to say, if America doesn't happen, we will no longer have the U.S. Constitution. So this is very relevant and very important. Right now in Washington, D.C., we do not have the First Amendment, free press, or free speech, and men and women are spending time in prison because their First Amendment is being taken away from them. So I'm documenting all of this, boots on the ground, heels on the ground, and I just want to say thank you, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Thank you for the America Happens Network, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to give you the true news today. It is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. It's going to be shocking. What's going to happen between today and next Tuesday? It'll be better than any movie you've ever watched. It'll be better than any TV show, and we will give you the real news, uncensored. So join us on the America Happens Network, on Rumble, America Happens on Rumble, America Happens on CloutHub, YouTube until we're banned, Twitter, of course. Do you call Twitter X now? Twitch, Kick, all the social media channels. Please join us, because this news is real and it's pure, and I am uncensored and unedited. May the goodness bless your life.
Check out the America Happens Network, because Fox sucks now.